My name is Oksana Falbuzar. I am a teacher of Brian State Pedagogical University, and today we have to work with our next lesson, which will be devoted to the logical thinking. So, logical thinking of the modern specialist. In modern conditions, as you know, and we deal with the transformation of society in Ukraine into qualitatively new forms of existence. Within the process of globalization and development, the problem of future teachers' training becomes really actual. So society needs competent teaching staff which can organize mastering knowledge at high intellectual level based on the ability to think logically, to argue their opinions, to have professional thinking. The question of the importance of logic in the educational process was investigated by Brushinkin, Ivanov, Kamensky, Nikolska, Sinska, Pomarchuk, Arnaud, and Nicole, and others. And all of them noted that logic is the art of correctly exciting the mind to the knowledge of things to which they run both in order to learn in themselves and in order to teach others. Vaishvila defines logic as the science of forms and techniques of cognition at the level of abstract thinking. All of that form the basic of correct methods and of language as a means of cognition. He even clarifies the definition, emphasizing that logic is the science of the laws and operations of correct thinking. It should systemize and justify valid and effective means of reasoning during our life. So our knowledge of logic is an integral part of modern education. This is due to the specificity of this work, which consists in the constant application of logical techniques and methods, definitions and classifications, arguments and objections. Leaders who are simultaneously organizing in discussions, arbiters and participants must have a higher logical culture. Knowledge of the rules of argumentation and criticism, permitted and prohibited methods of discussion will help economists, politicians, businessmen, designers, researchers, and programmers. Knowledge of logic is necessary for modern specialists, for modern teachers, because the effectiveness of the educational process is largely determined by the clarity of the concepts that students must learn, the correct formulation of the problem that should be solved in the learning process, and the argumentation of the teacher's statements. Now I have to start our presentation. Now I have to start it. Where is it? Here we are. So what is the logical thinking? As you can see, we have to analyze it. This slide will be devoted to their psychology studies, and they say that psychology studies thinking in the relationship of all its types. Thinking for psychology is the embodiment of a certain activity of the subject, motivated by interests, needs which are available for the individual. Formal logic examines the laws of true and rational thinking and its forms, concepts, judgments, conclusions, from the point of view of their construction, separating and abstracting from the specific content reflected in them. Thinking is one of the important components of human consciousness and is an abstract rational intellectual capacity of the human being that is closely related to empirical observations. Now I suggest you to look through these types of thinking, which were suggested by Fissler. They are dialectical, abstract, generalizing, categorical, inductive, deductive, algorithmic, technical, productive. After that, we deal with our logical thinking, surely. Just let some minute. Okay, logical. Next one. We have to find it. So the analysis of scientific work allows us to conclude that logical thinking, in our opinion, is characterized by the ability to apply the laws of logic, organize one's activities in accordance with these laws, the ability to perform logical operations, argue them, the ability to build hypotheses and draw correct conclusions. When a person thinks logically, he or she evaluates the results of the thinking process. How correct is the decision we made? That is, it includes an evaluation of the thinking process itself, the course of judgments that led to our conclusions. For humanitarians, the goal of studying logic should be the ability to apply its rules and laws in the process of thinking. Therefore, it is recommended that immediately after learning a certain concept, the ability to immediately perform exercises, apply your knowledge during discussions and training sessions. Mastering knowledge of logic and, as a consequence, the formation of logical culture will allow more successful teaching, scientific and research work, and will increase the effectiveness of general political activity. Students who are aware of logical skills will receive invaluable help in the process of processing a variety of information that they will encounter during professional pedagogical training and during their further activities. They will be able to separate the main from the secondary, critically perceive the material, define and classify concepts, select forms of proven true judgments and forms of denying false ones, finding errors and correcting them. Logic contributes to the formation of consciousness, the intellectual development of the personality, helps to form its scientific outlook. Thus, the importance of logic isn't limited to improving the culture of thinking. It indicates the need for humanity not only to solve certain cognitive problems of a practical nature, but also to be aware of the phenomena of cognition itself and to establish rules, norms, and ideals for cognitive procedures on this basis. There are certain general provisions that give meaning to knowledge and logic for our students. First one, knowledge of logic teaches us to think accurately, to clearly express our own opinion. Logic contributes to the formation of connected and understandable language. Logic indicates the ability to convince and justify one's own idea. Logic lessons from the habit of analyzing one's own and others' reasoning. Logic teaches a person to conduct polemics, to discuss in order to establish the truth. Correctly defend one's opinion, refuse false beliefs, found compromises, reveal dishonest methods and tricks. Logic creates the habit of thinking correctly. So, logic literacy is a necessary feature of education. ECE activities. The specialist widely uses such logical categories as concepts, judgments, inferences, deductions, inductions, analogies, versions, proofs, and objections. Now we have to look through the material which is devoted actually to the definition of logics. What does it mean? So logic is that which orders the world, an internal, objective, universal, permanent regularity. Now, I suggest you to watch a small video which will be devoted to some tips which will help us to strengthen our logical thinking. Just wait a minute. I'll show 5 tips to improve it, and we have to change our demonstration.
Every day, a sea of decisions stretches before us. Some are small and unimportant, but others have a larger impact on our lives. For example, which politician should I vote for? Should I try the latest diet craze? Or will email make me a millionaire? We're bombarded with so many decisions that it's impossible to make a perfect choice every time. But there are many ways to improve our chances, and one particularly effective technique is critical thinking. This is a way of approaching a question that allows us to carefully deconstruct a situation, reveal its hidden issues, such as bias and manipulation.
So thank you for watching our video, and we have chosen some strategies which will help you to practice using logical thinking skills, as you can see. So first one, consider different perspectives. A huge part of thinking logically is being able to put your personal feelings aside and consider an issue from different perspectives. When you feel very strongly about something, you might assume that everyone else must feel the same way you do, but there's a good chance you're missing some important considerations simply because you haven't thought about the problem from a different point of view. Ask questions. In order to consider different perspectives, one of the best things you can do is ask questions and be curious. Rather than just making your own assumptions or jumping to conclusions, question the things you typically accept as fact. What is their critical thinking? Critical thinking is scientific thinking, the main feature of which is in making well thought out and independent decisions. Most of all, it has the same qualities as awareness and improvement. Critical thinking is the process by which a person can describe a phenomenon or object, express the attitude to it by agreeing one's own opinion, find a way out of either situation. Why we need to develop critical thinking? First of all, a sense of freedom of one's own will. Expanding horizons, the ability to find and accept certain important truths for yourself. Deep understanding of yourself, your values and needs. Flexibility and better adaptation to change. Balance and calm. The ability to resist information pressure isn't to believe everything you read, but to check, analyze, and make informed decisions. The ability to find and neutralize manipulations. Technique of forming critical thinking. Challenge. First one. Their purpose. The formation of personal interest in obtaining information. Students should think and tell others through individual, peer group work, brainstorming, joint predictions, and I have to tell you that later we have to deal with brainstorming, and I have prepared a small demonstration for you, which is devoted actually to our brainstorming, and we'll stop only not only brainstorm, but also we'd like to analyze some mind mapping, and I know that you have prepared some mind maps, and it will be very interesting to discuss them with you and to take a look at your creative work. Okay, let me a minute. The next one. Technique of forming critical thinking, comprehension. Children get acquainted with new information. At the same time, they need to monitor their understanding and write down in the form of questions what they didn't understand in order to later fill in their white spots. And talking about questions, I know that our Kate has prepared a small presentation which is devoted to our Socratic method. I think that you have heard about it, and surely your presentation is devoted to Socrates, and we are very thankful for you to this. Technique of forming critical thinking, reflection. Students should reflect on what they have learned and how to incorporate new concepts into their ideas. Discuss how it changed their thoughts, visions, and behavior. Next one. Teacher training for the application of this technique. Define the purpose of the lesson, what we want to learn, and you know that while we are writing our lesson conspects, the conspect lessons, we have firstly to state our educational goals, our educational aims. After that, we have to think what you already know about it. What learning resources do you have? And you know that this is our material, our interactive blackboards. Maybe it would be maybe some tablets, maybe some your phones, tablets, gather information. Try to be as open and impartial as possible to new information. And now we deal with our resources, which could be in printed form, or maybe they could be taken online. Ask what are the authors, sources, bias about. So we deal with our resources. So this is our base. Systematize the information gathered to look for new connections, both between key concepts and between the whole topic and everyday life. Ask the question again, is there anything left unclear? Think about how you could demonstrate your knowledge of this topic and how could you make an interesting test on this topic using newly collected and structured information. Teaching strategies to promote critical thinking at English lessons. Critical thinking has been an important issue in education. It has become quite a buzzword around schools. The state standards specifically emphasize the thinking curriculum and thereby requires teachers to elevate their students' mental workflow beyond just memorization, which is a really good step forward. Critical thinking is a skill that young minds will undeniably need and exercise well beyond their school years. Experts agree that in keeping up with the ever-changing technological advances, students will need to obtain, understand, and analyze information on a much more efficient scale. Then we have to deal with our brainstorms now. We have to find it. Next slide. This one. Brainstorm before everything you do. And we have to take a look what about brainstorming. Так, змінилася у нас демонстрація, дівчонки? Так, дівчата, змінилася, добре. So brainstorming, as you can see, advertising executive Alex Rosborn began developing methods for creative problem solving in 1939. He was frustrated by employees' inability to develop creative ideas individually for companies. In response, he began hosting group thinking sessions and discovered a significant improvement in the quality and quantity of ideas produced by employees. He first termed their process as organized ideation and was later adopted by participants as brainstorm sessions. We have read about it before this. And for rules, go for quantity, withhold criticism, welcome wild ideas, combine and improve ideas. And there are some examples, variations you can see. I'll send you this presentation in our Telegram group, and you'll have opportunity to learn more about brainstorming. So brainstorming is a method that involves coming up with new ideas or trying to solve a problem by discussing it with all members of a group. This group can be made up of people who are directly linked to the problem or project. Brainstorming is often used by creative agencies and by student groups in educational institutes. Brainstorming helps people to break away from the traditional and boring way of problem solving. And talking about mind mapping. The term mind map was firstly popularized by British psychology author and television personality person. The use of diagrams that visually map information using branching and radial maps traces back centuries. The semantic network was developed in the late 1950s as a theory to understand human learning and developed further by Alan Collins and Ross Cullian during the early 1960s. Mind maps are similar in structure to concept maps developed by learning experts in the 1970s, but different that mind maps are simplified by focusing around a single central key concept. And there are some examples and samples. For example, empathy map, as you can see, saying do, hear, gain, pain, think, and feel. And also, I'd like you to form these mind maps if you want to form strong vocabulary basis for your pupils. For example, brainstorm mind map, discussion, share, project, mind master and stuck. The next one, samples, nature, function. As you can see, brainstorming usually involves a group, whereas mind mapping can be done individually. While brainstorming formulates multiple ideas, mind mapping identifies relationships. Brainstorming is a teaching method. Example. First, a small group of students is formed. They are asked to sit in a group and are provided with a particular issue or topic. Teacher is the group leader, then asks group members to think about the problem and give this idea. Students are encouraged to put forward suggestions without hesitation, and even if they seem to come up with unusual and unorthodox ideas. There are some advantages, as you can see. It's stimulated and provides the right instructional approach, highly motivating, increased task focus, promotes spontaneity and creativity, efficient and procedure, involves participants in ownership of ideas, encourages creativity. This is the comparison, as you can see, conclusion, brainstorming versus mind mapping. Brainstorming is a method that involves coming up with new ideas or trying to solve a problem by discussing it with all members of a group. Mind mapping is an effective method to brainstorm ideas and note them down without worrying about structure and order. Brainstorming usually involves a group. Mind mapping can be done individually. Brainstorming formulates multiple ideas. Mind mapping identifies relationships. Now I'd like to show our mind maps and our concept maps and problem-solving charts, and I know that our Dara has prepared a small material which is devoted to this. Dasha, can you show us your presentation? Some samples of them, okay? Так, Dashenka, just wait a second. Here you are, you can start. Dasha, please. Tell us something about your mind maps, about your concept maps. Which have you prepared? Так, Дашуня, що там у нас виходить з тобою? Получається, виходить? Так, давай дивитися. О, є, чудово. Excellent, great.
The first one is the concept map. The concept map is also called target maps and should be used when we are exploring a topic that is not complex. To make one, we should draw a circle and add spokes radiating from it and put our central idea or problem in the middle and add possible solutions around it in any order. The following example visually arranges a simple decision and the factors that may be used in making that decision. You can see on your screen the example of concept map. We have question why multo idea, and we have 5 possible reasons. For example, a crime rates lower, schools better, easier access to skill, taxes lower, and housing costs also lower. The next one is web. And web are more structured and complex graphic organizers than concept maps, and they are called webs because they look somewhat like a spider's web. These organizers help when you need to find possible solutions to a problem that has a number of causes. To create a web, write the problem in a circle, and next write the causes in smaller secondary circles and draw a line from each to the problem. Then from each secondary circle, draw lines to other circles in which you list possible solutions. Here is an example.
Okay, here's next example.
The next one is Venn diagram that shows the relationships among a group of objects to have something in common. Like a web, it's useful when we want to find solutions to a problem with 2 or 3 symptoms or elements. To create a program, we should ask ourselves what are the different symptoms of the problem, write each element in a circle and have each circle overlap, and ask yourself what can I do differently to resolve each overlapping set of symptoms, and repeat the previous steps with circles B and C and B and C, and fill the overlapping areas with our responses.
Okay, next, please. This is our solution, yeah? Problem solution charts, problem solving.
Yeah. Problem solution charts and the kinds of outlines that use Roman numerals and capital letters. And when it's hard to come up with ideas quickly, when we're trying to figure out where they fit into one of those number, we should try this chart instead. And it's more simple and structured online that can show information, and we need to clearly define problem, including causes and effects, and come up with solutions and even possible outcomes of those solutions.
Okay.
You can see the example.
Thanks a lot, Dasha. Thank you very much. Now I'd like you to speak a little about our practice in questioning. And talking about questioning, we have to deal with the Socratic method, Socratic dialogue, as you know. But firstly, we'd like to look through the presentation, which was prepared by our Kate. Kate, can you show us? Дашенька, you just have to stop your presentation, да? Будь ласка, там зупини демонстрацію, так? Щоб могла вже демонструвати Катюша. Так? Добре, Катюша. Can you?
Yes, I can, but give me a second, please.
Sorry.
I need to open it. And
Dashenka, please send your materials in our group, okay? We are very thankful, please. It is very interesting and colorful and professionally created. Thank you.
now I want to present a short information about Socrates. Socrates was a Greek philosopher from Athens who is credited as the founder of Western psychology and among the first moral philosopher, the ethical tradition of thoughts. Socrates was born in 470 or 476 before Christ to Sophronicus and Venerate, a stoneworker and a midwife, representatively in the Athenians deme of Peloponnesus. Therefore, he was an Athenian citizen, having been born in relatively affluent Athenians. His education followed the law and customs of Athens. He learned the basic skills of reading and writing and, like most wealthy Athenians, received extra lessons in various other fields such as gymnastics, poetry, and music. He was married twice, which came first is not clear, but his marriage to Xanthippe took place when Socrates was in his 50s. And another marriage was with the daughter of an Athenian statesman. Although Socrates was attracted to young, that was common and acceptable in ancient Greece. As Plato describes, he was more interested in educating their souls. Socrates died in Athens in 199 before Christ after the trial for impiety and the corruption of the young that later on day. He spent his last day in prison among friends and followers who offered him a road to escape, which he refused. He died the next morning in accordance with his sentence after drinking poisoned hemlock. An enigmatic figure, Socrates authored no texts and is known mainly through the posthumous accounts of classical writers, particularly his students Plato and Xenophon. The accounts are written as dialogues in which Socrates and his interlocutors examine a subject in the style of question and answer. They gave rise to Socratic dialogue literary genre. Let's talk about philosophy of Socrates. Socrates was concerned with the question of ethic, moral behavior. Unlike the sophists, he believed that there was definite right and wrong. He believed that people could accept it and apply it into their daily life. He said that it was up to people, society, as a whole, to establish those things that are right and those that are wrong, and dedicated his life to searching for standards by which people could live a virtuously good life. Socrates also concepted with justice. He wanted life to be fair and for all. It was a person's duty to explore the truth regarding right and wrong, justice and injustice, courage and cowardice. He worked to find principles and laws that all could live by and be happy. And he wanted to find universal. This truth will be acceptable for all people at any time, everywhere, and in all cases. And also we know about Socrates because of his method of communication with his student. Socratic method is a dialogue between teacher and student, intrigued by the continual probing questions of the teacher in a concerned effort to explore the underlying beliefs that share the student views and opinions. The teacher's tip explores how the Socratic methods can be used to promote critical thinking in classroom discussion. The first step, ask a challenging open-ended question. The second step is build on the first question by asking why. Come up with ideas based on these questions. The next step, interrogate your ideas with continual questions. And repeat steps 2 and 4 to get closer to the better solution. It's ideal that you ask this question with a group of people to get different perspectives.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay.